The polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, is a technique based on the mechanism of DNA replication because it uses the enzyme polymerase to generate copies of a sequence of interest through primers or primers. It was designed by Kerry Mullis in 1985 and is widely used for multiple applications such as diagnosis through the detection of genes and mutant variants, sequencing, amplification of genes for subsequent cloning, for the expression of recombinant proteins. The PCR consists of 3 stages. For the amplification of sequences, the first is the denaturation of the tempered DNA and occurs when the temperature is raised to 94. This allows the separation of the DNA strands. Afterward, the temperature is decreased until the adequate, so that the primers can be aligned with the sequence to which they are complementary. And finally, the temperature is increased to 68, necessary for the polymerase to incorporate nucleotides complementary to the chains, starting from the position in which the primers are located in the 5 to 3 direction. This series of steps is repeated until a large number of copies of the sequence of interest is obtained. For the PCR reaction to be carried out, the following aspects need to be considered: quality of the analytic, characteristics of the polymerase, and specifications for the primers. Temper. The DNA that will be used as temper mold needs to be pure and complete, free of contaminants such as phenol, proteins, and salt. Mainly, you should quantify and then use the appropriate amount for the reaction. For example, it is recommended to use 10 when genomic DNA is used at 0.5 when it is plasmid. The tempered DNA must be dissolved in pure water or in a solution of 5-3 pH between 7 and 8. It is important to avoid buffering with EDTA, which is an agent and sequesters the ions that the polymerase requires to be active. DNA polymerase is important to verify the provided information to know the buffer required by the polymerase to be used, the optimal concentration, the optimal temperature at which it is active, if it has an antibody that prevents it from performing its function until it is degraded, in the first denaturation, and the fidelity it has when incorporating nucleotides.
After the electrophoresis, we get the following results. In the lane A and E, we can find our positive control that is lightly visualized and that was used to evaluate the migration of the PCR product in the lane C and G. At the same time, in the lane B and F can be found the negative control, while in lane D, we load the fast DNA ladder to locate our PCR migration. What we found was that our PCR products in the lane C and G weren't visualized because of probably an incorrect loading volume or a preparation mistake in some solution.
The reason why the PCR product was not observed in the bands is unknown, since there are several compounds that influence the process and need analysis to determine the error. However, it should be considered that the positive control band was observed, although subtly. From this, it can be deduced that, although it is possible that the fault lies in the sample, it is also true that the conditions were not favorable for any of the samples, since neither the control was clearly observed. However, it is important to take in account the original of the template, since based on a sample of high or low quality, the type of polymerase to be used can be determined. If the sample was of low purity, the polymerase take does not have the ability to copy and repair the sequence, although the temperature conditions and the units that are required for the reaction also influence the performance of the enzyme. However, the concentrations of primers, DNA target, Tag polymerase, and DNTPs were presented within the concentration standards, but this does not mean that they are ideal for this specific product, since each sample could be favored by a specific combination of elements. A typical response at each point is to vary one or more of the many parameters that are known to contribute to the fidelity of the primer template and the primer extension. In the list of optimization variables are the magnesium concentration, the pH of the buffer, and the cycle conditions. Regarding to the latter, the alignment temperature is the most important. The situation is further complicated by the fact that some of the variables are quite independent. For example, because DNTPs directly chelate a proportional numbers of magnesium ions, an increase in the concentration of the DNTPs decreases the concentration of free magnesium available to influence the function of the polymerase. Another outstanding factor in this case is the quality of the primers. If the stock solution is thawed too many times, it loses its functionality, and taking into account that the primer used were taken from the final amount of the microtube, it can be deduced that they had really been frozen and thawed on several occasions, so it was advisable to corroborate the concentrations with the help of the spectrophotometer before use.
The polymerase chain reaction of PCR is a fundamental technique for most of the application of molecular biology. It has presented the theoretical and practical base of the PCR. There are many variants of PCR conventional, such as real-time PCR or quantitative PCR, which allows quantify the amount of products amplified, or PCI by reverse transcription, in which a copy of complementary DNA, cDNA, is obtained and using ribonucleic acid RNA as template. There is a lot of information referred to both conventional PCR and its variants.